Welcome to the exclusive. I'm your host, Sharon Tharp. I'm back today with a exit interview, actually, for the Traitors US Season 2. I'm talking with Janelle Pierzina, who obviously is from Big Brother, and you guys know Big Brother's something I've been covering for many years. So I was like, I have to talk to Janelle, especially in the wake of what happened in that episode with her and Dan, and then her and Sandra. There was just so much I wanted to discuss with her. So I'm really excited for you guys to hear this. It's my exit interview with Janelle. Oh, hello, Janelle. How are you?
It's so good to see you again.
I know you too. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of yours. I'm super bummed to see you go.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm curious. Okay, so I guess where to start is going into the game. I know you and Dan, you had a good relationship. You guys have always been friendly. Sort of, when's the last time you had spoken, or sort of what was your relationship going in the game? Was it sort of like an unspoken thing? Like, tell me
Yeah.
about just your relationship with Dan going in.
Say like day one, like Dan is all I know. Dan is all I have in this game. And so day one, my thing is I will work with Dan. I want to be with Dan. I want to play with him.
Right. Um, and how quick, because I theorized that you already knew he was a traitor, but how quickly did you pick up on that?
So our first conversation that we had one-on-one, I knew. I've been in some group settings where I was like, what the heck is going on? But after the first missions trip, I came back and everyone was like taking showers and stuff in their rooms. And Dan and I had actually a really long conversation. And I knew right then, because Dan wasn't acting like Dan. And, this is someone that I'm friends with. I've known for a long time. I used to live with Dan. I've played with Dan. And so I knew right away that Dan was a traitor. Like it was immediate.
So like
Um,
when you're thinking there, you're like, okay, I know he's a traitor, but he's not going to murder me, right? Kind of
I
vibe.
was like, this is perfect. I was like, this is dope. I love it. So I was super excited for him. I was like, okay, this is going to be a great thing. So I started working with Dan like right away. Like we were working together. I was telling him who was coming after him. He wasn't really giving me much, but I knew he was a traitor and he needed that info. So I was telling him what was said. And when I was in conversations with people and he was basically like, let's work together. And we did have a gamers alliance that we put together like right away, just for the numbers.
Yeah.
I, through the weeks, realized, or through the days, I realized I was probably on the bottom of that alliance, because there
Mhm.
was some big personalities, and Dan and Parvati were the most close. I think Dan's number one ally was very obvious to me. It was Parvati. It wasn't me, it was Parvati, which is fine. I was like, dude, as long as you don't fucking kill me, I don't care. Um, but it was a weird like struggle for me because I don't know if you could get into my head. I knew Dan and Parvati were traitors, but I was working with them. I was always trying to find the other two traitors. And that's where maybe I shouldn't have even have tried to look. I don't know. But you have to be some sort of a traitor hunter in this game. So I was always like, God, where are these other traitors? I thought there were four. I thought for sure. We all thought there were four traitors. So we were always discussing, like, okay, we're looking for four. And Dan's name came up a lot. So did Parvati's. Um, there were so many theories thrown out. I had a housewives theory on why they wouldn't be a traitor. I had a theory on why I thought it was two women. I mean, we were really trying to get this. It was difficult. You don't have
Yeah.
any information to go off of.
Yeah, and there's also so many big personalities and cast members that like they can't show everything, and I'm sure there's things that we didn't see. I know you had alluded to there was like a fallout from the Ekin soup poisoning. Anything you can shed light on there, what happened, and maybe that why,
Um,
yeah,
I
why you changed your mind?
what do you mean I changed my mind?
I think you mentioned on Instagram something like that's when you sort of decided maybe you needed to call out Dan a little bit, or something happened with
Oh
the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ekin.
So in my mind, I always knew Dan was a traitor. So when Ekin got poisoned, because I had so much heat on me with her already, I kind of blamed Dan. And obviously, watching the show now, I had no reason to blame Dan. Dan wasn't responsible for it, but I'm only going on what I can see in the game. And I'm like, God, Dan, you can't be, that I know you're a traitor, right? Like, why would you poison Ekin? It's kind of framing me for murder a little bit.
Oh, you're
I'm
right.
yeah, I'm
Okay.
like, dude, like you're pissing me off. And so I was a little heated about it. I was like, dude, there's so much shit that went down in the house that isn't shown. So the night of the Larsa banishment, my name was 1000% on the table. I was like, I'm getting framed for murder. Like, this is a fucking joke. Like, MJ and Kevin were like, Janelle, you wanted Ekin-Su dead. You wanted to kill her and this and that. I'm like, I didn't kill Ekin-Su. And so when the opportunity to arose and Larsa was targeting me, she was like, she sat down and she was like, you are the only person that wanted Ekin-Su dead. And I'm like, you guys can't be dumb enough to believe this. You know, I was like, please tell me. And then Parvati comes slithering in the room and she's like, I'm like, oh, goodness, save me, save me. I'll do anything, just please. And she's like, Larsa. I'm like, okay, yep, yep, that sounds good to me. So I'm like, I think Larsa's a traitor. I was just like so scared of going home and being blamed for Ekin-Su's like poisoning. And I was so mad at Dan. I was like, God, you really screwed me up. And so I did go, we talked that night, like Peter and I and Trishelle, and they were like, dude, that was such a bust. I'm like, I'm so sorry. And they were like, Janelle, you know who the other traitors are, right? And I was like, yeah, I know. And they were like, it's time. And I'm like, I was just like, I don't really want to be ready for that, but I was so mad at Dan for the Ekin-Su thing. And
Okay,
honestly,
that
numbers in
makes
the
sense.
yeah, with the numbers in the game, we thought we were looking at 4 traders, and we obviously didn't know the other 2. And with the amount of people in the game, Peter and I had figured if we miss 2 more banishments and they get 2 more murders, we didn't know Kate was coming in the freaking game. And if with me and Peter talked, we're like, if MJ's still in the game and Kevin's still in the fucking game, we're fucked. One of us is gonna die. We're gonna get murdered. They're not gonna keep us in the game, and we're not gonna have the voting power to do anything. Like,
Mm.
they'll have so many traders and so many like little pawns that it doesn't make sense. We have to do something. And so we all decided, like, if we all wake up tomorrow morning, which I didn't think we would even make it, I was like, and maybe I was just being paranoid, but I was like, I don't think one of us is going to die for sure. I was like, if we do wake up in the morning, we need to make a move if we're all actually there. And so great, we're like, we're going to do it
So you
tomorrow.
were in this Gamers Alliance, but you really were working with other people too, which made it complicated, right?
Yeah, like I was at the bottom of the Gamers Alliance, but I mean, Peter and I were leading the charge with the faithfuls that we were working with too. Like I was totally working with Bergie and Trishelle
Mm.
and John. Like I even started working with John. So yeah, I mean, I think the more Dan did things in the game, like not give me a name and the poison of Ekin-Su, the further it pushed me towards the faithfuls.
Okay, that makes complete sense now. I was wondering, I was like, we were missing something.
Yeah, it's just it just that relationship just started to unravel because I was like, it's pushing me closer and closer and closer to the faithfuls that I'm working with. Like I don't have anywhere to go because
Yeah,
he wouldn't give me any information. He wouldn't give me a name, nothing. Like I was just like, I'm just a sitting duck here.
right. And when you're at that round table and he's saying all this stuff, like, I'm blinded by your friendship, were you just thinking, this guy's getting away with murder again?
I was laughing, blinded by the friendship. Are you fucking kidding me? I was like, honestly, um, I threw everything but the kitchen sink at that man. Like, this is a 40-minute fight. Like,
Oh, wow. Okay.
we talked so much about Big Brother that they were like, okay, can you please stop talking about this? Um, but yeah, I feel like at my banishment, I was just laughing because I was like, I know that I'm going home. Like, I didn't think I had a chance in hell to stay. I was like, I even told my alliance, I'm like, I'm going home tonight, but you guys need to keep voting for Dan because don't burn those votes. I even told them, I was like, if you vote for him and you're very vocal about it, you should be safe from murder.
Fair.
And we had our little shield thing that we were doing. We're like, we're gonna trick them. We're gonna fucking trick them. So we were like, we should be safe by doing this tonight. It'll
Hmm.
protect you guys. I'm gonna die. And they were just like, you can't. I'm like, I'm gonna go home. It's fine. And like they were like devastated. Like Trishelle was like, you can't go home. And I was like, it's fine. Like I'm going home.
Hmm. Okay. And then, so in terms of just like, I know people were like, why'd you throw out CT and Sandra? Talk to me about that, because at that point you already thought you were going home. And then we didn't see, but you also called out Parvati, right?
Oh, I totally called out Parvati. I called out Parvati before I called out CT and Sandra. So I had a little bit of anger towards CT and Sandra because I was in the Gamers Alliance. Even though I was at the bottom of that alliance, we had voted together, CT and Sandra and I, every single banishment. We had always gotten a little room in a huddle, like, what are we doing tonight? And voted. And the day that I was banished, they didn't even come to me and say, Janelle, how are you voting? So I was like, really? Like, you think I'm that dumb at this fucking game? Like, I was pissed. I was like, how dare Sandra not ask how I'm voting, or even CT reach out to me? Like, I was really devastated. I was like, this alliance sucks. And so I was like, they're obviously voting to save Dan. I didn't, and I don't know where their heads are at. I never even, I think I did ask Sandra, I was like, did you know Dan was a traitor? And she was like, no. So I was thinking, okay, like it makes sense if she thinks he is, and maybe CT does. But
Hmm.
I was like, okay, like if you guys want to save Dan, that's fine. But their votes were locked because they didn't come to me.
Got
So
it.
I felt like me throwing their names out there. There was a lot of fighting that went on. I never actually called CT a traitor. I just said you're acting very suspicious. Because Peter and I thought he was acting weird. We were always like, see, there's something going on with CT. Um, but the reason I called out Sandra and I said, Sandra, I think you're a traitor, was because there was so much fighting happening at the banishment table. And she kept bringing up the missions trip that I did with Peter, and how we were convinced that the 6 people who played for Shields were in fact faithful. And I was like, at the banishment table, I was like, yes, I believe that Sheree, MJ, and I, or Sheree, Kevin, like all of us are faithfuls. And she's like, and you believe that the traitors were playing for the birds in the castle? And I was like, 1000%. And she's like, that's crazy. And I was like, it's not fucking crazy. It's what I believe. And Peter was like, that's what we believe. And we are protecting some of the faithful that we're working with by doing this. And she was like, Janelle, Dan Parvati and I had your back. And I was like, oh, so you're going to name out the other 2 traitors. I was like, you must be a traitor too. And it just got like really heated. And honestly, I just kind of threw them out there because I was like, maybe I was like, I'm just going to list the traitors that I think are out there. And I said, Dan, Parvati, CT, and Sandra, just so the other faithfuls can like maybe do something in this game. I don't know.
Maybe. Let's hope. Phaedra is playing pretty good. Did you ever catch on to her at all?
Never. No.
Wow. Wow.
She she was so good because like the thing with Dan and Parvati, I knew they were traitors, but they were also like not the best traitors because they wouldn't, not only would they not throw a name out, they would never traitor hunt. Like Phaedra was always actively traitor hunting with me, even though we were wrong. She would always come and talk to me and be like, okay, like I think it could be John, or I think it could be Peppermint. Or she was like, what do you think of Ekin-Su? And I was like, I think Ekin-Su could be a traitor, Phaedra. And she knows everything because she's playing the traitor role, but she was always like, Dan and Parvati were always just getting information from me. So it was like so obvious.
Nothing. They weren't giving you anything.
Phaedra was tricking me because she was actually traitor hunting with me. Like she was
Hmm.
like playing along with me.
I wish, Janelle, do you kind of wish Dan recruited you? That would have been fun, no?
I think it would have been so fun to be a traitor and so much less stress. Okay. Like, I mean, I'm not sleeping at night. Like, I'm like, am I going to get murdered? Is my best friend's going to get murdered? I was so worried. It's so stressful to be a faithful because you're just like a sitting duck. Whereas
Yeah.
like, if you're a traitor, you can play a more quiet game. You can like sit on your hands and like not do much and just listen. That'd be great.
Yeah, you brought up that point. You and Bergie were like, well, obviously Dan's not doing anything. He's just sitting there because he doesn't need to. He has all the information.
Yeah.
So I loved it. I know I don't have too much of your time. I do have to ask you because fans are a little bummed that we won't see you and Dr. Will on the same screen again. They wanted a little BB7 reunion. What were your thoughts when you heard that he had showed up?
Oh my God. Well, I know that they for sure asked him for the season, and he
Yeah,
was like, I'm literally loaded. I don't need the money. Like, you know, um,
typical.
well, I know he was asked to do the show. But when I heard that he was just like guest starring on an episode, I was like, oh my God, that's gonna be so comical. And I can't get me like he's gonna be like, what the hell? Um, yeah, I think I reached out. I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe you were in Scotland. And he was like,
Yeah,
yeah,
wild.
yeah.
Um, okay, well, I know you have to go. Any other things that you wish we saw that we didn't get to see, or and I know your relationship with Sandra is good. Have you talked to Larsa at all? Or are you guys like, eh?
I didn't know things were bad with us, though. I didn't know she'd take it so personally.
Yeah, she did,
I mean,
it seems.
if anyone should take things personally, it's Sandra. I called her a bitch. Like, and me and Sandra talk every day. Um,
Okay.
me and Sandra are kind of cut from the same cloth where we're scrappy. People yell things at us, and like, I would never take anything personally in a game ever. Whereas Larsa, it's like her first time, so maybe she's feeling like insecure about that and she's threatened. But gosh, I didn't think she would take it so personally. I'm really sorry.
Yeah, these reality competition shows, I mean, you've done them before. That's why you're like, whatever, at this point. It's not
Yeah,
personal.
it's just a game.
Uh,
Like, whatever. See you next time.
Thank you for checking out my exit interview with Janelle. I feel like I could have talked to her a lot longer and gotten a lot more tea, but I only had 15 minutes, so got what I could. But yeah, thank you for checking it out. I'll be back later this week with another recap, another guest, which I'm really excited about. So stay tuned for that. And as always, please like and subscribe. If you have 2 minutes to spare and can leave me a 5-star review, I would love that. And I will see you guys later in the week.